Over a span of 25 years in 19th-century Pennsylvania, Jeremiah Hartwell, a wealthy industrialist, was married to 5 different women. When they first arrived at his opulent Beacon Hill mansion, each bride was vibrant, healthy, and intelligent. Yet, one after another, every single wife succumbed to the exact same horrifying reality. Within months of moving into the master bedroom suite, they suffered a complete mental breakdown. The consistency of this pattern, its methodical nature, was so shocking that when the truth finally came out in 1835, it didn't just rattle Millbrook County, it stunned the entire state of Pennsylvania. Authorities uncovered something far more sinister than a family curse or mere coincidence. What they found was a deliberate conspiracy that had been systematically destroying women's minds for decades. Tonight, we reveal the chilling truth of what truly unfolded inside that mansion and explore how one man systematically drove 5 wives to madness. His methods were so calculated they still chill the blood today. An empire built on secrets. Before we delve into the tragic story of Jeremiah Hartwell and his wives, please subscribe to our channel and tell us which state you're listening from in the comments below. You might be amazed at how close these dark events took place to your own home. The events that would eventually shock Pennsylvania began in the prosperous community of Millbrook, a town nestled in the coal-rich valleys southwest of Pittsburgh. The Industrial Revolution had, by 1820, transformed this once sleepy farming area into a busy commercial hub, with factories spewing smoke along the Monongahela River and newly rich families erecting lavish mansions on the surrounding hills. In 1821, Jeremiah Hartwell, an ambitious, 25-year-old with a sharp sense for opportunity, arrived in Millbrook. Hartwell had relentlessly climbed his way up from humble origins in rural Ohio, unlike many of his industrialist peers who inherited their fortune. His early lessons, learned from his blacksmith father, taught him that true success demanded both intelligence and ruthless determination. 5 years after arriving, he had established the Hartwell Iron Works, which specialized in producing the railroad components urgently needed for America's westward expansion. The grandeur of Beacon Hill. The Hartwell Mansion, completed in 1828, stood as a monument to his swift ascent. Perched on Beacon Hill, it gazed down upon the town. The 3-story Georgian structure was a marvel, boasting 42 rooms, manicured, multi-acre gardens, and imported marble fixtures. The townspeople were particularly captivated by its splendor, especially the master bedroom suite, which consumed the entire east wing of the 2nd floor. Hartwell had spared no expense, decorating it with French-imported, hand-painted wallpaper, a massive 4-poster bed carved from Pennsylvania cherrywood, and towering windows that offered sweeping, panoramic views of the valley below. What made Hartwell's success even more noteworthy was his personal magnetism. Over 6 feet tall, with piercing blue eyes and prematurely silver hair, he possessed a compelling presence that captured the attention of both business rivals and social equals. Local society matrons fiercely competed for the chance to host him, while the unmarried daughters of prominent families found themselves inexplicably drawn to his evident wealth and refined charm. Hartwell, it seemed, understood perfectly how to make any individual feel like the most important person in the room. This potent combination of social standing, charm, and wealth established Jeremiah Hartwell as the most eligible bachelor in western Pennsylvania. Margaret's deterioration. When he announced his engagement to Margaret Dunlap, the 19-year-old daughter of a respected judge, the whole community celebrated what seemed to be an ideal match. The wedding in October 1829 was reported by the Millbrook Gazette as the social event of the decade, featuring an elaborate ceremony at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church attended by over 300 guests. Margaret Hartwell's decline began the following spring, slowly, almost imperceptibly. At first, the shift seemed like the normal adjustments of a young bride settling into married life. She had always been known for her lively conversation and quick wit at social gatherings, but now she appeared distracted during visits, often staring intently out the windows in a way that unnerved her guests. Her sister, Catherine Dunlap, later wrote in a private letter that Margaret had started speaking of the house as though it were actively watching her. She would stop mid-sentence and turn toward empty doorways, Catherine recalled, as if someone had spoken her name. When I asked what she heard, she would give that strange smile and say, "Just the house settling, dear sister." Old houses possess their own language. By summer, Margaret's actions were clearly erratic. She started refusing to sleep in any room other than the master bedroom, claiming the house felt wrong if she wasn't in her proper place. The household staff, initially charmed by their mistress's gentle nature, became increasingly uneasy as Margaret developed what they privately termed the watching habit. For hours, she would position herself at the bedroom windows, not looking out at the town or the gardens, but instead intensely studying her own reflection in the glass, subtly moving her head as if examining herself from various angles. The breaking point. The final, decisive break occurred on a humid August evening in 1830. The Hartwells were hosting a dinner party for several prominent Pittsburgh businessmen when Margaret abruptly rose during the main course, walked over to the dining room's large mirror, and began an animated conversation with her own reflection. The guests watched in stunned silence as she wildly gestured and appeared to argue with the image in the glass, occasionally erupting into a high-pitched laugh no one had ever heard from her before. She repeatedly asked her reflection why she looked so exhausted, Thomas Peaton, one of the dinner guests, noted in his journal. But the most disturbing part was her waiting for answers, pausing as though the reflection was speaking back to her. When Mr. Hartwell gently tried to lead her away from the mirror, she became agitated, insisting that her conversation was not yet complete. That night, according to the testimony of Sarah Quinn, the head housekeeper, Margaret was discovered at 3 a.m. in the master bedroom, completely unclothed, systematically tearing down the French wallpaper, strip by strip. When Sarah entered, Margaret turned with a serene smile, explaining that she's needed to see what's underneath. The walls, once fully exposed, showed only standard plaster and wooden laths. But Margaret nodded with a strange satisfaction, as if a crucial secret had been uncovered. Commitment and aftermath. Dr. Harrison Henley, the family physician, was called the following morning. His examination found a physically healthy 20-year-old woman suffering from what he labeled severe nervous exhaustion complicated by obsessive melancholia. In his notes, which would later prove to be vital evidence, Dr. Henley wrote, "Mrs. Hartwell shows an unusual fixation on mirrors and reflective surfaces, coupled with a belief that her reflection is somehow separate from herself. Most troubling is her absolute certainty that this other self provides her with information about the house and its history." Margaret's state worsened to the point of requiring constant supervision within 2 weeks. She grew convinced that mirrors throughout the house held messages only she could decipher, spending her days moving from one reflection to another, carrying on detailed dialogues with what she called the other Margarets. When family members attempted to cover the mirrors, she became violently agitated, scratching the cloth coverings until her fingernails bled. The final episode occurred on September 15, 1830. Margaret somehow managed to collect every reflective surface, piece of polished silver, and mirror in the mansion and arrange them in a complex pattern around the master bedroom. She then spent the entire night in what the housekeeper described as a conference with her other selves. By morning, she no longer recognized anyone, including her husband, and spoke only to the reflections, which she insisted were her real family. Following consultation with colleagues in Philadelphia, Dr. Henley made the difficult recommendation that Margaret be committed to the Pennsylvania Hospital for the Insane. On a dismal October morning, with autumn leaves swirling around the Hartwell mansion, Margaret was escorted away in a closed carriage, still calling back over her shoulder, "I'll be back soon." She would spend the remaining 43 years of her life in that institution, never regaining her sanity and constantly searching for mirrors in her restricted room. A widower's obsession. The commitment of Margaret Hartwell sent shock waves through Millbrook's social elite, but the community's reaction demonstrated the complex attitudes toward mental illness in the 1830s. While some whispered of moral failings or hereditary madness, the town's prominent families largely supported Jeremiah, seeing him as a tragic figure whose promising marriage was destroyed by forces outside his command. The prevailing medical understanding of the era attributed female mental illness to various causes, from excessive reading to disruption of natural feminine roles. Dr. Henley's official report to the county authorities cited Margaret's condition as likely resulting from an overstimulation of the nervous system due to the sudden elevation in domestic responsibilities and social position. This explanation satisfied most observers, as it aligned with popular beliefs about the delicate nature of the female constitution. For 3 years after Margaret's commitment, Jeremiah Hartwell lived as a reclusive widower. He maintained his business interests but avoided social events. The master bedroom was sealed, its contents draped in white sheets, and Jeremiah relocated to a smaller room on the third floor. The reduced household staff reported that their employer spent most evenings in his study, studying medical texts and corresponding with various physicians about his wife's condition. The science of affliction. During this time, Hartwell developed an obsession with understanding what he called the science of mental affliction. He amassed a vast library on subjects ranging from phrenology to the latest European theories on nervous disorders. His personal journals, discovered decades later, portray a man genuinely tormented by his wife's fate, desperately searching for rational explanations for her breakdown. In 1833, Jeremiah received news that Margaret had died in the asylum, her final years marked by the physical deterioration that accompanied her mental decline. The funeral was a small, private affair attended only by immediate family. Margaret was buried in the Hartwell family plot in Millbrook Cemetery. Her gravestone bore only her name, dates, and the simple inscription, "Beloved wife, at peace." The tragedy seemed to conclude one chapter of Jeremiah's life. However, those closest to him observed that Margaret's death had changed him in subtle but profound ways. His business associates noted he developed an almost obsessive attention to detail regarding his personal appearance and surroundings. He began demanding that all mirrors in his office be cleaned twice daily and developed a habit of frequently checking his reflection during business meetings, as if to confirm that he appeared normal to others. More significantly, Hartwell started speaking about marriage again, though in terms that sounded coldly analytical rather than romantic. He would discuss the qualifications of a suitable wife with the same methodical approach he applied to business negotiations, creating what he referred to as compatibility assessments for potential candidates. Elena, the second wife. It was during this period that Hartwell met Elena Rodriguez, the 22-year-old daughter of a Spanish merchant who had recently established trading ties with Pittsburgh's expanding industrial sector. Elena's rare combination of beauty and intelligence immediately drew Hartwell's attention, but more critically, she demonstrated what he termed exceptional mental resilience during their courtship conversations. Their engagement, announced in the spring of 1834, surprised many in Millbrook society who assumed Hartwell would never remarry. Yet, those who saw the couple together noted that Jeremiah seemed to have recovered his earlier charm and confidence. Elena, for her part, seemed genuinely thrilled and eager to become the mistress of the grand mansion on Beacon Hill. The wedding in June 1834 was a more subdued event than Hartwell's first marriage, but still elegant enough to meet social expectations. Upon Elena's arrival at the mansion, Hartwell made a decision that would later prove significant. He reopened the master bedroom suite, had it fully redecorated with new furnishings, wallpaper, and, most notably, an entirely new collection of mirrors. Elena embraced her role as mistress of the Hartwell household with grace and enthusiasm. She was particularly fond of the master bedroom, often giving tours to visiting ladies and highlighting the beautiful mirrors that reflected light throughout the spacious suite. She seemed to take special pleasure in the large vanity mirror, where she would sit morning and evening, happily chatting with her personal maid about the day's activities while brushing her long, dark hair. The eerie parallel. For the first 6 months of their marriage, Elena appeared to thrive in her new life. She quickly became popular among the local social set, known for her warmth, intelligence, and genuine interest in others. Unlike Margaret, who had been somewhat shy and reserved, Elena possessed a natural confidence that made her an ideal hostess for Jeremiah's business entertaining. But by the winter of 1834, those closest to Elena began to notice subtle shifts in her habits and demeanor. The first signs of Elena's decline appeared in February 1835, manifesting in ways that were disturbingly similar to Margaret's early symptoms, even though the household staff had been strictly ordered never to discuss the previous Mrs. Hartwell's illness with the new bride. Elena's personal maid, Maria Santos, a young woman who had accompanied Elena from her father's house, kept meticulous notes in her private diary about her mistress's changing behavior. These notes, discovered years later hidden in the mansion's attic, offer the most complete record of Elena's slow transformation. "Senora Elena has started spending much longer at her vanity," Maria wrote in early February. "This morning she sat brushing her hair for nearly 2 hours, but she was not looking at herself. She was staring just to the left of her reflection, as if watching someone else in the mirror. When I asked if she needed anything, she said, 'She's trying to tell me something important, Maria. I must listen carefully. The Mirror Woman. By March, Elena had developed what she called mirror conversations, though she insisted they were different from merely talking to herself. According to Maria's accounts, Elena would position herself before various mirrors in the house and engage in what appeared to be dialogues, pausing as if to listen and then responding to unheard comments or questions. Unlike Margaret's agitated interactions with her reflection, Elena's conversation seemed pleasant and informative. She tells me things about the house I never knew, Elena confided to Maria one afternoon, about the previous family who lived here, about the secrets hidden in the walls. She's also very knowledgeable about household management. She's given me excellent advice on organizing the staff schedules. Dr. Henley, still serving as the family physician, was discreetly consulted when Elena's behavior became more noticeable. His private notes from this period reveal his increasing concern about what he termed a most troubling parallel to the previous Mrs. Hartwell's condition. However, Elena's symptoms differed in important ways that complicated diagnosis. While Margaret had become increasingly incoherent and agitated, Elena remained articulate, functional, and rational in all aspects except her relationship with mirrors. Allegations of conspiracy. The turning point came in April 1835, when Elena announced to the household staff that she had learned something vital from her conversations with what she now termed the Mirror Woman. She claimed she had discovered that the previous Mrs. Hartwell was still present in the house, trapped within the reflective surfaces and attempting to warn future wives about the truth behind the walls. Elena has become convinced that the mirrors contain some form of spiritual presence, Dr. Henley wrote to a colleague in Philadelphia. Yet, unlike cases of supernatural delusions or religious mania I have encountered, she maintains perfect rationality in all other matters. She continues to manage the household efficiently, maintains normal social relationships, and shows none of the physical deterioration typically associated with mental illness. The obsession appears to be entirely focused on reflective surfaces and what she believes they reveal about the house's history. Jeremiah's reaction to his second wife's developing condition was markedly different from his response to Margaret's illness. Rather than immediately seeking medical intervention, he began what he called careful observation and documentation of Elena's behavior. His journals from this period show a man attempting to understand the apparent pattern emerging in his household. Elena's condition progresses along remarkably similar lines to Margaret's, he wrote. Yet there is enough variation to suggest the underlying cause may be environmental rather than constitutional. Both women were perfectly healthy before living in the master bedroom suite. Both developed fixations with mirrors within months of taking up residence. Both claimed to receive information from their reflections they could not have previously known. This analytical approach led Hartwell to conduct what he labeled controlled experiments with Elena's condition. He began documenting precisely which mirrors triggered the strongest responses, at what times of day the conversations were most intense, and what specific information Elena claimed to receive. His notes reveal a systematic effort to understand if external factors might be contributing to his wife's mental decline. The hidden passages. The experiments yielded disturbing results. Elena's most intense episodes took place in the master bedroom between sunset and midnight, always involving the same large vanity mirror that had been Margaret's primary focus. The conversations followed consistent patterns, with Elena asking questions about the house's history and receiving what she described as detailed answers about previous residents, hidden rooms, and secrets that must be preserved. Most unsettling was Elena's claim that the reflection had shown her the truth about what happened to the first wife. According to Elena, Margaret had not gone insane at all but had discovered something so shocking about the house or its owner that she had been deliberately made to appear mentally ill to discredit her potential revelations. The Mirror Woman says Margaret knew too much, Elena told Maria in May 1835. She says that's why Margaret had to be sent away, to protect the important secret. But she also says Margaret is still trying to warn people through the mirrors because the truth must eventually come out. By summer, Elena's behavior became impossible to conceal from Millbrook society. She began refusing to attend social gatherings unless the host's home contained mirrors where she could recheck with her advisor about appropriate conversation topics. When forced to attend mirror-free events, she grew anxious and distracted, often excusing herself early to return home for her consultations. The final confrontation. The situation reached a crisis point in August 1835, when Elena informed Jeremiah that she had learned something that would completely change their marriage and his standing in the community. Elena's revelation came on a hot August evening when the summer heat seemed to press against the mansion's windows like a living entity. Jeremiah discovered his wife in the master bedroom, sitting before the vanity mirror. This time, however, she was not engaging in her usual animated conversations. Instead, she sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, staring at her reflection with an expression of profound sadness. "She has shown me the truth about this house," Elena said without looking away from the mirror. "About what you do to women who live in this room, Jeremiah. About why Margaret really went insane." According to Jeremiah's journal entry from that evening, Elena then laid out a series of allegations that left him stunned. She claimed the mirror woman had shown her hidden passages within the walls, secret rooms where previous occupants had been held against their will, and evidence of what she termed medical experiments conducted on unwilling subjects. Elena has constructed an elaborate fantasy involving secret chambers and clandestine activities, Jeremiah wrote. She insists that Margaret discovered evidence of these alleged crimes and that her mental breakdown was artificially induced to silence her. Most disturbing is her claim that the mirrors somehow contain memories of these events, accessible only to women who spend enough time in the master bedroom. Discovery of the hidden walls. But Elena's accusations were not vague conspiracy theories. She provided specific details about the mansion's construction, claiming the mirror woman had revealed hidden passages connecting the master bedroom to unused sections of the house. She described elaborate monitoring systems built into the walls. And, most shockingly of all, she alleged that Jeremiah had been systematically drugging his wives with substances designed to cause mental confusion and hallucinations. "The medicine you give me for my headaches," Elena confronted her husband that night. "It's not medicine at all, is it? She showed me what it really does. How it makes women see things that aren't there. How it makes them appear insane to outside observers." Jeremiah's response to these accusations was swift and decisive. The next morning, he consulted Dr. Henley about Elena's rapidly worsening mental state, emphasizing the conspiracy theories and paranoid delusions that had replaced her earlier benign mirror conversations. Dr. Henley, already worried about the parallels to Margaret's case, agreed that Elena represented a potential danger to herself and others. "Mrs. Hartwell has developed a systematic delusional structure that disturbingly mirrors the earlier case," Dr. Henley noted. "Her insistence on secret activities and hidden passages suggests a complete break from reality, possibly heightened by the isolation and stress of managing a large household. I fear that without immediate intervention, she may progress to the violent episodes that marked the final stages of the first Mrs. Hartwell's illness." The unthinkable truth. But Elena was not prepared to be quietly committed to an asylum. Over the next few days, she began what she called her investigation, systematically examining the mansion's walls for the hidden passages the mirror woman had described. She enlisted Maria and several other household staff members, convincing them to help search for hollow spaces, concealed doorways, and loose panels. The search yielded an unexpected result. Behind a wardrobe in the master bedroom, Maria discovered a section of wall that sounded hollow when tapped. Further examination revealed a narrow panel that, when pressed, swung inward to expose a cramped passage running between the walls. The passage, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, seemed to connect several rooms on the second floor and contained what Elena described as observation ports, small holes that allowed someone in the passage to see into the bedrooms without being detected. "The mirror woman was right," Elena triumphantly told Maria. "The passages are real, just as she said they would be. If this part of her story is true, then everything else must be true as well." The discovery of the hidden passages sent shock waves through the household staff. But their effect on Jeremiah was even more profound. His journal entries from this time show a man desperately trying to regain control of a situation that was spiraling beyond his conventional ability to manage. "Elena's delusions have led to the discovery of architectural features I was unaware existed in my own home," he wrote. "The previous owner made no mention of these passages during the property transfer, and I can only assume they were constructed for purposes I cannot fathom." However, Elena's interpretation of their significance has become completely divorced from rational explanation. She now views every aspect of the house's design as evidence of a vast conspiracy directed against women in general, and wives in particular. A shrewd merchant intervenes. As news of Elena's discovery circulated through Millbrook's gossip networks, Jeremiah found himself facing unanswerable questions. Why had he not known about the passages? What was their original purpose? Crucially, how could he explain the disturbing coincidence that both of his wives had developed nearly identical forms of mental illness centered on the same mirrors and the same bedroom? The pressure intensified when Elena's father, Don Carlos Rodriguez, concerned about reports of his daughter's behavior, arrived from Pittsburgh for an unannounced visit. Don Carlos was a shrewd businessman who had not built his trading empire by accepting convenient explanations for difficult problems. His meeting with Elena revealed a woman who appeared perfectly rational, save for her insistence on the mirror woman's revelations, and his subsequent conversation with Jeremiah raised questions that demanded immediate answers. "My daughter claims she has discovered evidence of criminal activity in your household," Don Carlos informed Jeremiah during a tense evening meeting. "She also alleges that her mental condition is being artificially induced through medications administered without her knowledge. These are serious accusations that cannot simply be dismissed because they originate from someone whose sanity is questioned." The investigation deepens. Just when we thought we'd seen everything, the horror in the Hartwell mansion escalates. If this story is sending a chill down your spine, share this video with a friend who loves dark mysteries. Hit that like button to support our content, and don't forget to subscribe to never miss stories like this. Let's find out together what happens next as the truth behind Five Wives' madness finally begins to be revealed. The confrontation between Jeremiah Hartwell and Don Carlos took place in the mansion's library, a room conspicuously lacking any mirrors or reflective surfaces. Elena had insisted on being present, claiming she needed to consult with her advisor before making any vital decisions about her future. When informed that no mirrors were available in the library, she became agitated and requested that a hand mirror be brought to the meeting. "I cannot discuss important matters without her guidance," Elena insisted. "She knows things about this house and its history that no one else understands. She has been trying to protect me, just as she tried to protect Margaret." Don Carlos's response to his daughter's behavior was remarkably different from that of previous observers. Instead of dismissing Elena's claims as delusional, he began asking specific questions about the information she claimed to receive from the mirror woman. This approach brought forth details that had not emerged during Dr. Henley's medical examinations. "Tell me exactly what this mirror woman has revealed about the house's previous occupants," Don Carlos requested. Elena's reply provided information that should have been impossible for her to know. She offered detailed descriptions of the mansion's original owner, specific architectural features that predated Jeremiah's ownership, and, most disturbingly, accurate information about business dealings and financial transactions that had occurred before her arrival in Millbrook. Jeremiah's attempts to dismiss these revelations as coincidence or lucky guesses were undermined by Elena's continued accuracy. She described business associates Jeremiah had never mentioned to her, detailed his private correspondence with investors, and, most shocking of all, provided precise accounts of conversations that had taken place in the library years earlier, before she had ever set foot in the house. "The mirror woman sees everything that happens in the house," Elena explained. "She has been watching and listening for years, collecting information about all the residents and visitors. She knows about the secret business arrangements, the hidden financial records, the real reason Jeremiah chose this particular house for his residence." A criminal inquiry. As Elena continued her revelations, a distinct pattern emerged, shifting the investigation from a medical case to a criminal inquiry. The information she provided suggested that the Hartwell mansion had been deliberately chosen for its observation capabilities and hidden passages, that Jeremiah's business success was founded on information gathered through covert surveillance of his competitors and guests, and, most damningly, that his marriages were strategic arrangements designed to provide cover for activities requiring the appearance of domestic respectability. The evening's discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Henley, summoned by Jeremiah to offer medical testimony about Elena's condition. However, Don Carlos's presence changed the dynamic of what Jeremiah had intended as a commitment hearing. Instead of a simple evaluation of Elena's mental state, the meeting became an interrogation of the circumstances surrounding both wives' illnesses. "Dr. Henley," Don Carlos inquired, in your medical opinion, what could cause two different women with no prior history of mental illness to develop nearly identical symptoms after living in the same location? Dr. Henley's response exposed the limitations of 1830s medical knowledge, but also his growing suspicions about the case. While such coincidences are unusual, he conceded, they are not impossible. Environmental factors, including stress, isolation, and exposure to certain substances, could theoretically produce similar symptoms in different individuals. However, the specific focus on mirrors and the consistent reports of receiving information from reflection suggest either a shared delusion or what Dr. Don Carlos pressed, or the possibility that both women were exposed to similar environmental conditions that produce similar hallucinogenic effects, Dr. Henley concluded, making them susceptible to suggestion and false memories while still maintaining their ability to function normally in other areas. The implications of Dr. Henley's statement hung heavily in the library's stifling air. If Elena's condition was artificially induced, then Margaret's similar breakdown took on an entirely new meaning. Rather than tragic coincidences, the wives' mental illnesses became evidence of systematic manipulation.